Welcome to Backyard Family Fun, the podcast from Pride Pools, Spas, and Leisure Products. In Claxton and Savannah, Georgia, celebrating 50 years serving our community, this family-owned business has spent decades helping create memories that last a lifetime. Whether you're a pool owner, a spa lover, or just looking to turn your outdoor space into a true retreat, we've got you covered right here on the Backyard Family Fun podcast. And as a crazy awesome deal for our Backyard Family Fun podcast fans, you get 10% off anything inside either location in Claxton and Savannah, excluding pools, hot tubs, or saunas when you mention the podcast. That's all you have to do. Go and visit the Claxton or Savannah Pride pools, mention the podcast, and get 10% off. Now that's a reason to celebrate. Welcome back to Backyard Family Fun. So excited to be here with Marshall Smith for this episode. And we're going to be talking about, I don't know if you remember that song way back in the day, Marshall, but it was something like Pump Up the Jam. I feel like we need to do some version of that for this, as we're going to be talking about pumps and filters and all the things. Thank you so much for coming back and sitting down.
My pleasure.
Letting us pick your brain a little bit for this episode.
Sure.
Interesting time of year for pools and spas. A lot of people are kind of doing a reset and trying
That's a good way to put it.
right?
Yeah.
And trying to figure things out. Let's first talk about what is the most common misconception people have about their pool pump and maybe how it affects what's going on. These are questions that I think a lot of people are concerned about and come in and ask you guys a lot.
Sure. I think the misconception is about their pool pump is, how often should I run it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, does it need to run 1 hour a day, 10 hours a day? Does it need to run 24 hours a day? Well, I think environment, I think location, there's a lot of things that can dictate a misconception about a pool pump. But we would tell you, if we were to give you professional advice about your pool pump and how long it should run so it can do its job, would be a minimum of 12 hours a day. In conjunction with, obviously, when that pump runs, it's obviously filtering the water as well, right? Mm-hmm. So it's important that it runs a certain amount of time to get a turnover rate in the pool. So, I don't know if there's misconceptions when it comes to run times or how often they should clean the baskets, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. We always advise a minimum of 12-hour run time when it comes to proper pool care.
And it's interesting because I would think people kind of come up with a thought process of like, okay, if I'm going to run it for this long, I also probably have a certain amount of time I need to run it depending on the size I've got going on and depending on probably some other factors too. Am I right?
That's right. So the size of the body of water will dictate a lot when it comes to runtime. Obviously, the larger the body of water, the more runtime you need. And I think when it comes for individuals to understand if their pump is working properly or working efficiently or whatever, is going to have another part of our segment that we're going to probably talk about is filtration as well. So filters and pumps are kind of like, I use the term peas and carrots. They go together, and without one or the other, neither one is very good singularly.
And they taste pretty good on the plate. I mean,
that's right. That's right.
Mix in some mashed potatoes.
Man, that's right. Shepherd's pie, a little bit of something else, and we're good to go. So, we can make shepherd's pie out of pool equipment, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
We'll make an attempt.
That's right. Nothing wrong with that. You're right, though. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about both, and I think that's something that we want to get into a little bit too. And I guess the other thing that I would think people are sort of thinking about is, how sometimes the pump situation can get really loud, right? I mean, and so how do you work with that and you make it more efficient and more, fitting your lifestyle? Right. You know what I'm saying?
So the beauty is if a homeowner has an in-ground pool in their backyard and they have a filtration system, and it's kind of like you buy a car, you crank it, you understand what it sounds like, you know what the engine sounds like, and you drive it down the road, and once it starts making a different noise, the radar goes up, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're hopeful that folks are doing the same thing with their pool pumps, and they're listening to know that, okay, that pool pump sounds a little different than it did when we first started it up. And so it should throw up a flag and say, okay, is there something going on over there that requires us to go check on it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So we would encourage anyone who hears a pump that makes a little bit different noise, let's go inspect. So
Mm-hmm.
let's see. Pressure gauge could be a little higher or lower, and maybe it's time to do something with the filter piece of this puzzle when it comes to keeping those two working together. The pump is obviously the key component. And when if it's making a noise that is just a different tone when it comes to what you are used to hearing, is one thing. But then when it starts getting really loud and it's making a noise that's maybe keeping the neighbors up, then it's time to do something about that.
Right.
It's time for a new motor.
Right.
So yeah, if we're talking about those kind of noises, so yeah, typically what happens is if we're getting a loud pump noise and it's almost like it's a screaming noise, we've got some bearings that are bad in the motor, and it's time to replace the motor. And so that happens over time. It's not uncommon. So you want to have a keen eye to know that if we're making some louder noises than normal, then we probably should inspect.
Right.
Whether you do it yourself or you have us come out to do it, we can do that as well. So we service everything that we sell and other things as well. So
Well, when it gets into the motor and the bearings and all of that, I'm calling. I'm saying,
yeah,
please come look at this
fair enough. Yeah,
because that's a lot. I mean,
it can be.
Yeah. And at what point, do you know? Okay, I've got to replace this, or I've got to get something new. I mean, that's kind of a big deal.
Well, and we like to think that it's DIY, but it's also pretty complex when it comes to the efficiencies, depending on how elaborate the filtration system is. But otherwise, yeah, I think that when it comes to certain aspects of your pool, sometimes it's better just to let the professional handle it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the relationship of the pump and the filter and the filtration? Because
Love to, yeah.
peas and carrots, it is, they do lean on
Peanut
each other.
butter and jelly. That's right.
right.
Absolutely. So, yeah, one without the other is no good. So, especially for pool care or spa care. So, that pump runs and it's doing its thing. It's taking that water out of that body of water through the filter. And it could be either one of three types of filters. It could be a sand filter, it could be a cartridge filter, or it could be a diatomaceous earth, which is or for short, DE filter. Those are your typical three filters that you would find in the marketplace or in our industry, so to speak, that's used to filter pools typically.
Okay.
So sand filtration is probably the most common, and that's what we traditionally put on all of our pools, unless it's requested for something different, because we see that type of filtration system being the most efficient. I think the pump and filter are married better when those two are working together. And so, yeah, I think when it comes to making sure that setup for your body of water is properly sized, it's important to know that you're going to get the turnover rate. It's important the plumbing to be a certain diameter, right, so that you're getting a certain turnover rate. So we can get into some maybe some technical lingo that may or may not sound appealing to anybody, but yeah, those two are married together, and they need to make sure that as they work together, they are working in harmony. So the plumbing part of it is very important as well. So you don't want to have a plumbing nightmare, so to speak, a spaghetti junction. You don't want that spaghetti junction in your plumbing, because it creates restriction. And when you have restriction, it can cause your pump to be not as efficient as possible. So good plumbing is very important when it comes to the efficiency side of your pump and filter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that you're right. That's the thing, because once something is not working in harmony, that's when we figure out we've got some issues. Things are not, the water's not as clean. There's something, it trickles down from there, would you say? Because that's kind of at the heart of things.
That's right. Yep. So when it comes to just knowing that your filtration system is working at an optimum level, you've got to, even for us, we encourage the homeowner to be involved so that it's kind of like when that emergency arises, but you don't intend to fix it yourself, but you can kind of semi-diagnose, they can then, oh, yeah, let me tell you what it's doing and blah, 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 blah. I'm paying attention enough, right? So we want consumers to have a little bit of touch of DIY in the diagnosis side of it, right?
Sure.
So that we can then understand more. And when we come out to address whatever needs to be done to get that pool and that pump and filter back up and running efficiently, then we can be more prepared. So yeah, you got to understand what you're working with, and we want people who are invested in their backyards and have a pool to understand just enough to make sure that it can help us do our job better. So yeah.
Yeah, that Marshall reminds me of a phone call I made to the mechanic once, and I was on the phone saying, "No, let me mimic the sound that it's making."
There you go. You know, and we really appreciate some of the feedback we get
Yeah,
when we get those noise comparisons. Yeah,
yeah,
and so yeah, the good news after 50 years, I think we've heard them all.
right.
And so
Yes,
we're at a point where
you have a catalog of
yeah, we
noises,
do,
you know.
we do, and so we can say, oh, yep, it's that. Oh, yep, it's that.
Yeah,
Yep. So the good news is that it's usually only one of two or three things, and
right.
so there's not a long diagnosis list, but
Mm-hmm.
it's enough to understand that you don't want to replace a motor when it doesn't need to be replaced, or replace it when it should have been replaced.
That's right. Yeah,
Exactly. So
yeah. I'm excited to talk about some of the new technologies with pumps, and I know you are on the cutting edge of that, always looking at these new technologies and what's coming out. What even hasn't even hit the public eye, and you've seen some of that. Can you talk a little bit about new pump technology?
well, I would say there's not. Yeah, there's new technology out there, and if I have to say anything within the last 3 to 5 years, I would consider still new, because this industry has evolved over time. I would say we've probably evolved more in the last 5 years than we probably did the first 45 years when it comes to technology. And let's face it, I think the world as we know it has evolved from a technological point of view more in the past 5 years than we probably did the first 2000. But
That's right.
yeah, so I would tell you that yes, there's new technology out there. There's new technology that's the same as the old technology, but just better, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So single speed pumps, you got dual speed pumps, you have variable speed pumps.
Is that better, the variable
Well, that's
speed
a great
pumps?
question, and well, we think it does, and I think the federal government thinks that it is, because those were one of the mandates that we got back in July of 22. We were mandated that all new installations had to have a variable speed pump put
Okay.
on in-ground swimming pools. That being said, the federal government thought that we needed to be more efficient, and good, bad, or indifferent, I would tell you that a variable speed pump is a good thing. I would tell you that I have one on my pool, and it allows your obviously your power bill is going to be less.
Yeah.
And when we say variable speed, that means it's going to range anywhere from probably 900 RPMs up to 3,450 RPMs, which is the max for a motor that is in our category. So, yeah, that being said, yeah, we find the conveniences of that. I think consumers have embraced it. The cost has been a lot more,
Right.
but I would tell you that being able to basically dial the speeds of your pump is kind of a cool thought, and I think consumers appreciate that. So the energy efficiency part people love, and being able to establish run times that coincide with certain RPMs. We can get kind of deep into some of the technology here, or the technical points of view, but the key is, I think, when it comes to new things that are out there, anybody that either doesn't have a variable speed pump should look into it compared to what maybe the single speed or dual speed pump that they have now. So the federal government has stepped in and intervened into our industry, and now all new in-ground construction is required to have a variable speed pump. So it's not mandated. It's not, anybody that was built before 23, before 22 got grandfathered in, so to
Right.
speak. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about some of the not necessarily, I guess you wouldn't call it new technology, but you would call it like some of the automation for these, right? I
Yeah.
mean, this is it's sort of like, I'm thinking about some of the grills that are, here at the Savannah location or the Claxton location. You can see that you can start them up with an app on your way home.
Yeah.
It's this kind of automation that's gone.
That's correct. Absolutely. And we talk about technology, and I guess automation technology is all kind of the same thing, but you're right. Having the ability to control your pump, your pool pump or your spa equipment or whatever with an app on your phone, the automation side of it has come a long way from just a standard, mechanical timer. Now we have automation that allows you to be able to put in multiple run times to where you could have the pump run at 600 RPMs or 900 RPMs for 2 hours a day, and then you can have it run at 2,000 RPMs 6 hours a day, and you can pre-program that. So the
Yeah,
automation side has come a long way. I would say this, obviously in other facets of our life, automation was already there.
that's
So,
right.
I think our industry was just needing to kind of get caught up, and it has. And we have caught up in a hurry. So I feel like that anything that you want to do when it comes to pool or spa, you can pretty much, from an automation point of view, Bluetooth, all those things that makes your life simpler or easier are available on pools and spas.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's really cool to be able to see all of that. And you guys have seen it over 50 years go
We
from,
have, we have.
it's changed a lot.
It's changed tremendously from, like I said earlier, from a mechanical timer that you could, physically set it and you put a couple tabs and it ran,
Right.
and it made life simple because you didn't have to go out there and turn that pump on and off. It would turn itself on and off, which was, just basically basic technology that was mechanical. And so I don't know if you can be technical and mechanical at the same time, but I think that's what happened and it worked. And matter of fact, that's still available. That is basic technology that if anybody says, you know what, that's all I want,
Yeah.
we can still do that too. So,
That's right.
yeah.
That's back to my
Yep.
grill analogy. That's why I still have a grill that I like to do nothing but put the charcoal in, and that's it.
Absolutely. Well, that's why the big green egg is so popular. That's the reason
Right.
we love the big green egg. And it's the reason we offer it here because it's got that basic technology of manual labor.
Yes.
So we got to put the charcoal in it and we've got to light it and we can't do anything else but let it do its thing, right? So, yeah.
I totally get that. Let's talk a little bit about filtration.
Okay.
That can be quite a headache for a lot of people if something goes wrong and you don't know how to fix it and that sort of thing. That
That's
can be
right.
a lot.
Yeah, it can be. So again, we were talking earlier about the pumps and the filters. That They
Hmm.
are married to one another. One's only as good as the other, right? So I think depending on what type of filtration system that you have on your pool, kind of dictates that a little bit. If it's a sand filter, easy to backwash and rinse to clean that sand out to get it back on its path to proper filtration. I would say that when it comes to cartridge filters, a little more cumbersome, a little more manual labor involved. And then to get into DE, diatomaceous earth filtration systems, that's even a bigger headache. So, but very effective. So it's interesting. So I'll kind of give you a quick snapshot based on the filtration media that we were just talking about. You got sand, cartridge, and you got diatomaceous earth. Sand is going to be the filtration part of that is going to be the largest micron. In other words, when it comes to the smaller micron, you're going to get to the DE filter. In other words, the sand filtration system is the most efficient from a cost perspective and use perspective. However, it's going to give you the larger micron in filtration. So, because ultimately the smaller micron you get the water down to, the better the filtration is.
Okay.
So it's kind of like good filtration, better, best. So when it comes to the filtration, actual verbiage of what we're looking for when it comes to great filtration or better filtration, diatomaceous earth is going to be that product that's going to give you the lowest micron when it comes to filtration, but the most expensive. So it's kind of like anything in life, right? So the stuff that does the best job and the best work usually costs the most.
That's right.
We find that, again, sand filtration, living where we are in Southeast Georgia, and the thousands of customers that we have love that application of sand filtration because it is the easiest to maintain. It gives you the micron that works, and my pool has a sand filter on it, and it's always crystal clear and blue. So it does the job, but it's easy enough to maintain. We teach consumers how to maintain the filtration side of pool care because it's pretty easy. So the DIY in that part is important for them to be able to do that. However, we've got some that never want to touch it either.
Right.
And we go out there and we're willing to go out there and do that as well. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to the filtration part of your pool, I mean, obviously it is essential. Without it, you've got a pond. So we got to filter that water. And there's, again, as we alluded to earlier, there are 3 basic filtration medias that work for your pool, and sand is in my opinion, from a cost perspective and efficiency, the most effective. So
Love that.
yeah. And then one we didn't really talk too much about is a cartridge filtration system. Cartridges are going to be second in line when it comes to micron,
Okay.
getting it down, but a little more cumbersome because it requires that you have to disassemble your filter to clean that cartridge, and nobody likes to do that.
Yeah.
So let's keep it simple, right? So
That does take away some of the fun
potentially
time.
It does take away from the backyard family fun.
That's
so
right.
we don't want to do that.
We don't want to do that.
And so, but it is a method that works, and we realize it. And some people realize that it's worked best for them. They may have moved here from, say, Florida, and you find a lot of cartridge filters in Florida for whatever reason. So yeah, I mean, those are the 3 fundamental types of filtration systems that are going to work best for in-ground, above-ground pools. So
Yeah. The climate that we are in, coastal Georgia, and does that have a part? Does that play a part in what you're doing with your pump and your filtration? What you should be looking for, how you should go about with the servicing of those? Does that play a part?
great questions. Yeah, and being in Southeast Georgia, our ambient temperature is, it's pretty mild even during the winter, right, compared to other parts of the country. And so, but what we have found is that probably over the last 10, 15 years, winter covers have become a thing of the past.
Right.
I mean, everybody have decided that it just makes more sense to leave their pool running year round. So that being said, you want to be very conscious of your pool pump. You want to make sure that it's still operating even during the non-swim season, right?
Right.
So
right.
yeah, being in coastal Georgia, Southeast Georgia, it's all about ambient temperature, and it's always about, once we get to a certain threshold of heat, that pump should run more often. As we get below that threshold, it should run less often.
Right.
Meaning that we tell people, run that pool pump, let it run as much as possible. The energy is cheaper than the chemical. So let's make sure we're operating your pool pump the most efficient way so that you're getting the most bang for your buck based on your pump running and keeping your pool clear and healthy. The more you run your pump, the less chemical that you will need. It's a proven fact, and we can show it. So to answer your question about pump and runtime of being in this area, it's all about temperature. That's what dictates the run times and how often you should run your pump.
That makes sense. Yeah. And I think it's so interesting that I when I moved from Virginia to Georgia, I was like, whoa, no one uses a pool cover, and this is a whole different deal, I feel like, with pool maintenance and what you're going to be doing, in the quote unquote off season.
That's right. Well, and so I don't know if we had anything to do with that or whatever. We just felt like that backyard family fun means something, whether you're in the summertime or if you're in the wintertime. It doesn't matter when it is. Your backyard doesn't leave you. it stays there the whole time, right?
Right.
So yeah, let's keep it looking as beautiful as possible at all times, whether you're just entertaining family and friends in the tailgate season during football season, right? Maybe we're not still swimming, but we have heaters for that too, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we're, so the key is this, we suggest don't don't put an eye patch on a beautiful face,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah, when you don't have to.
Yeah.
When you don't have to. So that's kind of the theory. So no covers. I think that people realized, oh gosh, yeah. And because with variable speed pumps and that new technology allows them to dial back the energy consumption, and with things that we train them and teach them and how they can program their filtrate, their automation of their pool that helps with the reduction of energy cost. And so now we can leave the pool uncovered
Yeah.
year round. And so, yeah, a lot of things have dictated that environment and being able to keep it looking beautiful year round without having to cover it.
Yeah. And last thing I'll ask you is about, yeah, and you brought this up just a second ago. What about those folks who've got a heated pool? Are you doing things differently?
Great question. So it's interesting you use the heated pool scenario, meaning this. Yes. So from a chemical consumption and chemical basis, the difference is temperature, as I mentioned earlier.
Right.
It's all about water temperature. The warmer the water, the more volatile I would say it is, meaning that you just got to pay attention to it more as it warms up. But as it gets below 70, that water temperature, it's less volatile. Nothing can grow, not get into the chemistry side of things, but algae spores can't grow in anything below 70 degrees. Now, I'll say this, depending on the complete environment, we're not going to say that if it gets to 69 and it doesn't, it still could. We just like to use that measuring stick of 70 typically, because being in Southeast Georgia usually dictates when people will or will not swim.
Right.
So we use 70 as a good number, and that still might even be a little chilly,
That's
right?
a little chilly for me. But...
me too. So, yep. But typically that's kind of the measuring stick everybody uses for saying, okay, it's time to go into hibernation mode, so to speak. And so the pumps, the automation, the filtration system, it's important pieces to a healthy body of water and make it efficient, even in heaters. Heaters can be very efficient. There's ways to make, I would say, yeah, there are solar blankets that go in your pool. There's ways to capture that heat in your pool based on whether it be natural gas heat, whether it be LP heat, whether it be solar heat, whether it be, there's ways to heat your pool. There's multiple ways to heat your pool, I should say. And so I think once you know you have a heater on your pool and you're using that heater more so than not, then it can give you more volatility in the chemistry of the pool. So yeah, you want to be able to know that as that temperature stays up above that 70, 75 threshold, you just have to make sure you pay attention enough to it where keep that pH balance and stuff to keep it looking beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I made a mental note of solar blanket because I'd never heard of that, and that sounds really cool.
Can be. Yep.
Really cool.
Helps retain the heat.
Yeah.
Let's face it, right? Heat rises. So as heat rises, if we can capture it before
Right.
it rises, it'll maintain. So in that body of water.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that. Well, of course, we're going to put some links in the show notes here of this episode of information we're talking about and how you can stop by and see all the great folks on the team here at Pride Pools and either location, Savannah, Claxton, all the pumps, all the filtration, all the things you need. This is the place to come and get it. So
yeah, well, after 50 years of backyard family fun, we feel like we've been able to maximize, I guess, our efforts so that we stay in tuned from an education point of view, hopefully trends point of view.
Right.
So all the things that we feel like consumers want in their backyards, we feel like we can capture that. We've got it here. Come see us. You will definitely, I think, be surprised if you've never been our store. you will be, I think, pleasantly surprised at what we do offer. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. I see a lot of wide eyes when they walk in the door, and it's really, really cool, especially first time folks that walk in the door. Well, Marshall, always a joy. I learned a lot in that, so thank you very much.
I've enjoyed it, and thank you, Dee, for what you do, and wonderful questions. I think consumers will get some value out of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. Thank you.
Let the celebrations continue. The team at Pride Pools is excited to give you a huge anniversary special. Actually, 3 of them. To celebrate 50 years all year long, you can get up to $10,000 in savings on 3 anniversary fiberglass pools. There are 3 sizes to choose from: the backyard size, the family size, and the fun size. How cool is that? So stop by the Claxton or Savannah locations of Pride Pools or go to pridepools.com for more information. Thanks for listening. Come by and meet your local pool and spa experts in Claxton on Highway 280 West or in Savannah on Gateway Boulevard South, or go to pridepools.com. If you love backyard family fun as much as we do, be sure to give us a rating and review, and subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you have a question or topic you'd love for us to cover, drop us an email, info@pridepools.com, or tap the links for Facebook or Instagram in the show notes of this episode. We'd love to hear from you. Now let's go make a splash and have some backyard family fun.
Pride Pools, Spas and Leisure.